Hello. How you doing?
Yay. I'm good. I'm doing really well.
Cool. Excellent. It's so cool to be on here. This is such a awesome idea, and I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Well, I'm excited, really excited, because you were one of the ones that I wanted to talk to very early on in this process. So you
Beautiful.
are episode 6 now.
Ooh, lovely number. I like it.
It's good. Okay, we're going to get this party started.
Cool.
So, hello, my name is Stacy Tiro, and this is Changed for the Better, the Power of Arts in Education. I'm Stacy Tiro, a high school performing arts teacher for over 25 years. I've taught a lot of amazing people. Now that so many of my students are adults, they'll teach me how, through the lessons in my classroom, they have been changed for the better. Okay, so before I introduce the name of this incredible young man, let me give you a little background. And I wrote this out because I wanted to make sure that I got this all right, because he is well deserving of praise. So this individual is from the class of 2012. And once upon a time, he was one of my star dance pupils, as well as one of my star thespians. All at the same time, while he was balancing playing defensive end and a linebacker, and technically unofficial captain, because he's just that kind of guy, of the football team, maintaining very high academic standards, and also enjoying a very close-knit family and community life. Once he graduated, he left us, which made us all very sad because everybody remembers him, who I worked with at the time. He went off to Syracuse University, and not only did he get a bachelor's degree in broadcast and digital journalism, he also got a master's degree in television, radio, and film from the SI Newhouse School of Public Communications. Now he is a very talented videographer and editor, and he is currently working for the Detroit News as a multimedia journalist. Hopefully I got all of that right.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm really happy to say that we have stayed in close contact over the years since he graduated. And initially it all centered around like running, and we did a frozen turkey trot a couple of years back, where we froze in 16-degree temperatures, but we made it. But then more recently, when we went through the pandemic, I had to shift to virtual productions because we couldn't do anything in person. And Hernz was there to basically save my skin. not for one, but for 2 video productions. It has been my honor and my privilege to not only be his teacher, but now to be a collaborator and a close friend. Hopefully we will collaborate on more things in the future. And just on a personal note, he is quite literally one of the most humble, the most positive, and like the best people that I know. So I'm really happy to have him here on this podcast, because he's going to drop some serious wisdom for all to see and hear. So I guess we're going to begin with question number 1, which is, what is your name, the year that you graduated, and what do you do now?
Cool. Well, first off, the introduction was amazing. Thank you, Ms. Cyril. Appreciate that. I just love. I can't express enough how much I love this platform and this idea. It's so beautiful. So like you said, my name is Hernz Laguerre Jr. Graduated the class of 2012. Currently, I am. I just like to use the title storyteller. I tell stories, but specifically, I'm a multimedia journalist with the Detroit News, and I have my own freelance company, HWH Productions, where I am a freelance videographer.
Yeah, and you're good at it too.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so here in this podcast, we do some reflection specifically on the things that you learned from your high school experience in the dance studio, on stage with Thespians, and how that has translated into your growing up, into your transition into adulthood. So we're going to go to question 2, and using your adult brain, describe your adolescent self.
Cool. I would say young Hernz was definitely like just very enthusiastic about everything, and like literally wanted to do every single thing, put his hand in every pot that he could. And I think there was a beauty in that, because it just showed how passionate I was about many different things, and I think it just showed how much I just love people and interacting with people in different capacities. But also it showed how like I was kind of all over the place as well, in a bad way, kind of like I needed to really focus in on the passions that I had, and realize that there are only 24 hours in a day. You know what I mean? Like I became very well at time, like during my high school days. Like there was a time I was like, man, like I don't have time to sleep, because I'm doing all these activities and stuff. Like I wonder why that is. Like, why don't I have time to sleep? And my sister was like, because you do like a kabillion different things. You know what I mean? So it very much so. I was heavily involved, and I think it had some positives and some negatives, but overall, I was just very passionate young guy.
And that's true, because there's not a lot of, and I'll say guys in particular, because we have a very strong football team. We still do. Andrew Delva Senior he's incredible.
He's the
And
GOAT. Yeah.
he cultivates not just the team, but there's like a brotherhood that is a part of his way of doing things.
Yeah.
And so the football team has always been very, very tight knit as a team and as a community. And so Hernz was a really important part of that. And I remember, like, he was like all about the football, but he was also very much an everyman. And like you said, it was like Hernz was doing this and Hernz was doing that, and Hernz was not just like, he didn't just like participate in Thespians, but he was like really active and really passionate about it. Thank God for me. As a director, I was like, yeah, we got a football player, baby.
Yeah.
But he brought so much to the table. Everything that he brought to everything that he did.
Yeah. No, yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because as I'm going through, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of me graduating and stuff, our class graduating. So I'm going throughout the yearbook, just making sure, checking out pictures and just kind of reminiscing and stuff. And in the section where it shows like all the different activities, like I'm like almost in like 70% of the photos for like the Thespians, for football, for track, for all these things. I'm just like, yo, and it's funny because that day, I think everyone takes photos at the same time in the, I believe the women's gym, the women's basketball gym. And I was just wearing the same outfit for every single one. So like, it's just funny saying like, man, I definitely was running from like different sections to sections to take the photo. So
step out of frame. Okay, come back into it. Okay, step out. Okay, come on.
that very much was the case. I was involved in a lot, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the most involved kids. We all want them. Like, all of the teachers of all of the clubs want all of those kids,
Yeah.
because they become the leaders. They become the exemplars for what we want the other kids to come in and build upon. So I'm glad I got you.
No, yeah, I'm glad too. Thespians was such a beautiful part of my life and stuff, and evolved me in many more ways than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully it informed the stuff that you're doing now as well, which we'll get to that, I think.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to question number 3. So what was something now Hernz was in the dance classes. I think it was 1 or 2 years. I can't remember exactly.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And he did Thespians after school. So I kind of got the best of him for both of those things. So what was something that happened in the studio, whether it was in class or in rehearsal, that helped you to manage or to regulate your adolescent self?
Mm. I think there was I shared that, it was high school. I really became aware of time. And I think just awareness of like self became a thing too. And I think there's an awareness that like the things that you do leave an impression upon people, whether good or bad. You do things and then people, attribute those things to you. And I think I became very hyper like aware of those things. And you know being uncomfortable is one of the things that adolescents, they're uncomfortable with. You're not comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that definitely showed itself within Thespians and also within dance. I remember sophomore year, because sophomore year is when I started Thespians. And you mentioned that you had a ballet class that you would love me to do. I remember sharing with you. I was like, nah, like I was like, that's not me. Not without even like considering it. Like for a second, I was like, no, that's not me. That's not what I want to do. But funny enough, when I went to check my schedule for next year, I remember that being like the class that fit into my schedule. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like I gotta do. It was either that or like just doing like weight room again. I didn't want to do weight room again. So I went ahead, signed up for the class, and then all of the movements and everything just stretched me in a way that like that made me feel uncomfortable, but made me feel comfortable being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Doing movements that you wouldn't imagine like a 6'2", football player doing. You know what I mean? Like it definitely made me realize that it's okay to be in that space. It's okay if you feel silly doing something. It's totally fine. Like you don't get good at something, or you don't become good at something until you do it. Like, and I realize I'm in my head a lot. Like I'm imagining these movements being a particular way, and then not seeing them being executed in that way. I'm just like, I look silly. Like I'm gonna mess this whole thing up. You know what I mean? So, but you did such a fantastic job. Like I remember just walking us every step of the way and making us feel comfortable doing these things that were out of ordinary, like doing these movements and doing these dance routines. And that even showed itself within Thespians as well. Like I've always loved stories, and I've always loved like films and different things. And, as a kid, I've always imagined myself in these films and in these roles. But, just kind of in my head, it was always like in there. So doing Thespians was me being able to explore that outlet, and and I realized that there was a part of me that wanted to like come off cool, or like come off like or package myself in a particular way that I was okay with. But when you're playing a different role, you have to get out of who you are and go into a package of someone else. And I think it wouldn't have been as easy if you weren't there like holding our hand throughout the process, because I think you being able, like one thing that you used to do that made me feel comfortable, like you would do the movements, you would do the lines. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to do like how Tara did it. You know what I mean? And if it didn't come out as great, we kept on repeating it. The repetition was there, and then eventually it got to where it needed to be. So the room was like a safe place for me to stretch and do the silly things, do the wrong things, you know what I mean? Like do things that are out of the ordinary. And then it made me hone that craft so that when the time came to be on stage, I was all the way comfortable with being a Willard, or, being a tap dancing a butler, like Drowsy Chaperone, or being like soldier number 2, like in Pippin and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It made me feel comfortable doing all those things,
And that's the brass ring for us, as teachers, is that we pray that when our students first walk in the classroom, that we have the skills to take you through it, year after year after year, because every project is different. Every project brings something new that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable for us too, because we don't have all the answers. We know what we want it to look like. And then we have like these individuals in front of us who we hope will, bring out what we think of in our heads that we want to see. But there's no hard and fast answers. And so I think being able to live in that uncomfortable space is everything, because then it kind of like breaks you open to being okay with being creative and making the mistakes and doing it again and trying it in a different way. And you did that. So thank you.
And thank you for having me doing it. There's a freedom to the vulnerability that is that, you know what I mean? Like that, like I find myself just like knowing or being aware of different parts of me that I didn't even think were there. Like, because I was able to stretch and jump and do these dances and do these twirls and do all these things that I just wasn't comfortable doing at first. So like there was a lot of freedom just in my personality and everything that resulted from all of that. So yeah.
Oh, you were always a very teachable person. You were highly teachable. So that felt great. And were you were in the class with Manny at one point?
No, yeah, I was in. I remember Manny and I did a lot of like routines together, like during Footloose and stuff. We were doing a lot of dances together, and it may have been. You're right. It may have been my senior year, Manny's freshman year, where we did contemporary dance together. I think that's what it was. And Manny's just like an all around great dancer and stuff. So it was cool just being able to see another guy in there and just be able to, kind of try to match his skills or to the best of my ability. You know what I mean? So,
oh, you did great. You did great. You're better than that. Okay, so let's go to question 4.
Cool.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned then? I feel like you kind of might have answered that, but I'm going to ask you anyway. If you have anything else, what are some lessons that you learned in the studio that you think about or that you use today? So you talked about, being okay with being uncomfortable. And I think that's kind of a really big lesson there. But was there anything else?
No, yeah, there's a ton of things I can like the whole day just list off things that I just remember from the studio and I took to real life. But I'll say the second thing is the beauty of collaboration. Like no one man can or one woman can put on a show of multiple people. It's just impossible. You know what I mean? So like everybody has to do their part in order to make the production work. And that's just an adage that I'm just seeing in so many different areas of my life. And like it's said in different ways in almost every area that I'm in. So I remember on stage it was act well your part. That's where all the honor lies, right? And then going to football, I remember with Delva, it was very short. It was do your job. You know what I mean? Like just do your job, and that's the main thing. Don't focus on anything else, but do your job. When it came to playing football in college, it was like you got to bring your best self to the table. It was very much about when you walk away, when you walk away from any game, when you walk away from any workout, did you give your best self? You know what I mean? One of my position coaches had something that always stuck with me. He said everyday interview. Like he would say every day, and we would reply interview. Pretty much meaning every single moment is an interview. You got to give your best self. And it was all like feeding into the idea of this is all a part of something bigger. This is all a part of the main group. So I think working within groups, from inside the studio into every other part of my life, it just reminds me that that proper collaboration requires, giving 100% effort, each individual giving 100% effort in order to make it work. So that's something that till this day that I'm learning, and I'm just seeing the beauty in almost every area that I'm in, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, certainly working in video production and working in a newsroom or for a news organization, that like there's so many different facets in order to achieve that one main goal of getting information out, telling stories.
It
doesn't happen with just one person.
For sure. No, yeah, you need multiple hands, working at it in order to make it work.
Yeah. Hey. Okay, number 5. So How do you think you have changed since you graduated from high school?
Mm. The first thing that jumps to mind is that I think I'm much more open-minded to things, much more open to trying new things, and just much more aware of myself and the things I got to do better. You know, I think in high school, in a weird way, I was very stubborn to like listening to to listening to logic in a sense, and I'll explain like because like if there are only 2 hours to get something done, right?
Mhm.
And I needed to do like a handful of things. Like I would convince myself like, no, like all these things have to get done in these 2 hours, and I just got to make it happen. And you know, and ultimately those 2 hours would pass, and then I would go into 3, 4, 5 hours to get all these things done that I needed to do. I think I wasn't reasonable with my time that way. I think now I'm much more aware of that. Still trying to master that, but I'm much more aware of that. Like, you know, I need to schedule things in a way that makes sense. You know what I mean? I think with me being passionate, I want to do everything and then some.
Mhm.
You know, but I think there are times if I try to do that, that I could like overextend myself and not execute to the ability that I want to execute in. So it's almost defeating the primary goal in the first place. So one thing that I learned or one thing that I think I changed for the better is just being more aware of that and trying to fine tune my time management skills. You know, my time management skills.
Mhm.
Definitely, I need to continue to work on those. But it's definitely one of those things that I think I'm becoming uh, I'm accepting more, and I'm becoming more aware of that. You know, that it's a thing that I need to improve upon for sure.
There's really never enough time in the day to do all the things that you want to do.
No, yeah.
There's really never enough time. But do you Okay, so after a little bit of an audio glitch, don't know why, but the magic of Zoom, I think we're back in business. So my question was, you're working on time management, and that's something, we never have enough time to do anything, of course. But do you feel like you have gotten better as far as your efficiency? Like, I remember whenever I was doing a show or doing a class, I would like write everything out. I would plan every like to the last letter detail. And now, like years and years and years into the career, I I write down some stuff, generalized ideas, but the nitty gritty of choreography often comes like sometimes off the cuff. Sometimes I'm like, oh, here's an idea, let's see what happens here. Or I'll ask the kids to like help me to make something. Does that kind of apply to your situation where you're just getting better at making things happen?
Yeah, I would say like in pockets, like in pockets, like I'm getting better in different situations, and there's ebbs and flows in it as well.
Mhm.
I would say overall, like I've realized like throughout high school, like I think I should have done a better job at like being easier on myself if there was a mistake, right?
Mm.
If I made a mistake in terms of the whole time management thing, I used to just beat myself up and like, all right, just try it again, rather than like, all right, you did it wrong, but like, how can you improve upon that, right?
Mhm.
So I think now with time management, although I'm not where I'm supposed to be, I need to celebrate the small wins too. So like the time, because I think it all is like you just understanding your level of production and understanding what's the best situation that will help you produce the way you want to produce. And
Mhm.
so a lot of it is the writing down. I realize when I write things down, it helps me like focus on that time. I
Mhm.
realize if I put all the distractions away, if I put my phone away and stuff like that, and just lock in my room, that I'm able to produce the way I want to produce.
Mhm.
And it's just being patient with myself and being patient, knowing that hey, like it's gonna take continued work in order to get to where you want to go. I think that's the mentality that I just need to hone in on and focus on.
Mhm.
Um, because very much so in high school, I'm thinking, okay, like I know how to get it done. Boom, success. You know what I mean? But I think in like now I'm realizing that okay, I know how to get it done, but how do I fix it? How do I get it? How do I fine tune it? How do I mold it in order to point to success? And then how do I get to that point where I'm successful in it? You know what I mean? So I think some things come easier than others, but for me is definitely a work in progress, a work in progress in terms of me getting to where I want to get to.
Yeah, and me too.
So yeah, it's as with life, man. Yeah, it's one of those things I'm just like learning more and more. You know.
Yeah, I think, and you just learn, you learn how to be just more efficient and kind of better at everything that you do. You know what winds up being a time suck and what, you know, kind of moves you forward faster. And
Exactly.
it's experience. It's just all experience, you know, time.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to question number 6.
Cool.
So what would your adult self tell your high school self now to help ease the way?
Ooh. I would say you know, it's okay, man. Like I think I would just like look at myself and just give myself a hug and say it's okay. Slow down, write things out,
Yeah,
and take it step by step.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I think very much just me just being passionate about things. I was very much like hyperactive, like, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. Oh, I'm falling behind, or I need to do this to compete in this class, but I need to do this. Nah, man, like run in your own lane and take it step by step. I think that's the one thing that I would love to tell my younger self. But you know, I was encouraged when I heard Will Smith, he kind of answered the same question, and he said it's something he would tell himself, but he would love to learn from his younger self a particular thing too, like his younger self fearlessness, right? And I
mm,
think although I was very much like just looking at everything and just being very like pressured in order to execute on certain things, there was a hopefulness that my younger self had, like this undying hopefulness that I
mm,
would love to steal. You know what I mean? Like, cause I figure I realize now like there's times that my hope gets dinged up a little bit or like gets scarred up a little bit. Just because, you know, as time goes farther and you know you have a dream that you had for so many years, and you don't know how you're gonna get there. Like your life meets reality in a sense, and they're just like, dang, how am I gonna get there? I would love to steal that hopeless, that not hopeless. That I would love to steal that undying, the hopeless. No, I would love to steal that undying hope from my
mm.
younger self and just attach it to me because I think using that and having the proper mindset will lead to an unstoppable version of Hernz. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah.
Well, and I would say that back in high school, you were a wide-eyed optimist, like
Yeah.
huge, and you are still an optimist. Like, you know, I've worked closely with you enough in your adult version of yourself as well that hasn't gone away, but there is a little bit of a world weariness that makes us cautious and maybe questioning, maybe a little doubtful here and there. But even with that, I feel like you always see the possibility.
Yeah.
There's always still possibility, even if that what has to get there. You know, when we were doing the virtual stuff, and we had
Yeah.
our plan A, this is what we're gonna do, and then we wound up with like plan Z, and we still got it done, and the vision was still there, but how we got there was just very, very different. And because, you know, we were both open-minded enough to go, okay, so it doesn't have to be this way, it can be this way or this way or this way. Either way, in the end, it's going to get there. So I think that serves you very well, that you carry from your younger self. You haven't let that go yet, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I would, because the optimism is still there. I think younger self, it would not be like realistic optimism, it would just be like full on like
Yeah.
optimism. Like if I'm gonna get this, I'm definitely gonna get this and stuff like that. But I think now there's like a realistic optimism that's with there, that's there. And to your point, the I think the small like you know leakage of doubt sometimes makes you think like dang like where's all this leaking coming from, you know what I mean? I gotta plug it up. But so yeah, so I'm holding on, you know what I mean? It's like I'm holding on as tight as I can for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that as creatives, we kind of have to. We don't have much of a choice.
No, yeah, because in terms of fulfillment, like this, like being in the creative space gives me fulfillment. Like it makes me feel full, and I feel like if I know this for sure. If I were to be like, all right, let me stop this and do something like practical or something, maybe not even say practical, something that would definitely guarantee like a certain success, but not like fulfill me creatively. I know I'm gonna be empty inside. I know I'm gonna be like, oh, what if I stayed with that first path? You know what I mean? So I'm more so. I think I'm much more. I like the idea of giving my all to this thing that I like to do, and trying to find different ways to get it done. And then when it's all said and done, I can look back on my life and say, you know, I gave my all to this thing, and I think that will make me much more fulfilled than doing anything else.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the idea that I've grown accustomed to. So yeah,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's go to question 7. What is something that you, adult Hernz, are grappling with now?
Ooh. I would say the main thing that I'm grappling now is the future and how that looks. But it's just in so many ways, right? Like I'm realizing that I'm getting older, and there's like much more responsibility, and that's always expected. I've always been open to responsibility, but just in different ways. Like I see younger people, younger versions of myself who are looking towards me for some type of guidance, and that carries a certain amount of a weight to it. Knowing that I mean something to older adults, you know what I mean? Seeing me getting older and seeing that I can do more things, seeing that I mean much more to them holds a certain amount of weight. This past summer, I just, I think I told you this, my cousin and his lady asked me to be the godfather of their daughter. You know what I mean? And that carried a certain amount of weight. You know what I mean? Because I was talking to both of them, and then when they shared with me the idea, there was almost an essence of disbelief. I'm like, wait, I'm at that level yet? I'm at that level now? Like, because I've always imagined I just imagined it looking differently. You know what I mean? And honestly, I would say that probably best answers the question. I think the thing I'm grappling with is that how I envision the future isn't exactly how it's going to be, but it's all like according to plan type of deal. You know what I mean? Like it's all happening the way it's supposed to happen. So I think there's a part of me that's like trying not to marry my thoughts and dreams, but also being okay with it shifting in a sense, being okay with things shifting and looking a bit different. You know, so that's definitely where I'm at right now, for sure.
Yeah. Join the club, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so question 8 now. Tell me one thing that you miss about your high school self. So not about high school. There's probably 1,000 things you miss about high school, but about your high school self. And then one thing that has gotten better.
So one thing that I miss about my high school self, and then one thing that gotten better. I definitely missed the curiosity I had. You know what I mean? There was a curiosity I had about many things. That's not that curiosity now, but I think there was a fearlessness in that curiosity that I had when I was younger. I'm just like, I'm gonna try to just because. I'm gonna try to just because. I think now I'm curious, but I always like weigh the pros and the cons. Like, if I do this, what happens to this? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think there's also like a nervousness that I have now that I didn't have when I was younger. I was just like, oh, I gotta do this because this is how I get to the next level, blah, blah, blah. So I'm gonna go ahead and give my all to this. So I think, you know, that's definitely one thing that I miss. One thing that's gotten better. Because although there was a fearlessness, I think I proceeded with things without caution at times. So like, which led me to, you know, to just very silly things, you know what I mean? So I think there's a level of caution I have now that's good. But if I can find a way to balance the caution with the fearlessness, I think that's where I'm at right now, that I'm trying to get a hold of. 'Cause I think I'm overly cautious now, but I want to mix in that fearlessness and, you know, match that together to make the Hernz that I want to be. So yeah.
Like whatever you decide to do, you're just gonna, whatever it takes, make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And like, and not necessarily throw caution to the wind, but not like looking at it every second, you know?
Right.
So yeah,
Right. Well,
I
you
think
know, moving to Detroit, that was a pretty big, fearless move there.
for sure. And then there was a lot of caution going into this as well. Like a lot of there was a lot of I had a lot of like hesitation, you know what I mean? Just because I was just like, I never really experienced this place. I know about Detroit, but I never lived in Detroit. So there was a lot of newness, and I think almost like reluctantly, like a part of myself was just like, all right, you just got to go ahead and do it. You know what I mean? And I was just like, okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I had to let go and close my eyes a bit. And I opened my eyes. I'm just like, wait, I'm not in Spring Valley anymore. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. Right.
So, yeah. So it's it definitely was that. But you know, it felt kind of similar to like when I went to Syracuse for the first time, and because it was almost a similar situation because my mother and my father helped me move. And then as they were leaving, my mother's tearing up. You know, that has me tearing up a little bit. Legit, like mirrored situations. And I remember as they were driving off, as my parents were on the airplane this time, but Syracuse, they were driving off to go back to Spring Valley. As they were leaving, I was thinking, okay, like I'm solo again. Like this is up to me to get things done, and it's up to me to figure things out. And I think, and this is my theory, and hopefully this turns out to be true. I think being in that moment where you're with yourself and you have no other choice but to you have no other choice but to
Rely on you.
exactly, you have no other choice but to rely upon yourself in order to get to where you got to go. I think that builds a strength that is unmatched. You know what I mean? And you know that's very much in theory. Now I'm trying to see if that comes true, but I think that will prove itself to be true for
Oh,
sure.
I think it does. I think like undoubtedly it does. And you just keep becoming a better version of you.
Mhm.
That's what you do.
Yes, man.
All right. So number 9, if you could give a piece of sage advice to high school students now, what would it be?
Mm. I would say, you know, the one thing that I always like to tell like the younger folks is that there's a world outside of Spring Valley High School, you know, and I think there, you know, past couple of years with between the pandemic and a lot of things are just happening in like in the national scheme of things, the international scheme of things, you know, social unrest, all these things. There's a lot of things are that are including our young folks that I didn't when I was younger. You know what I mean? So there's a part of me that I look at them and I admire them for going through this time.
Mhm.
Because I don't know how things would have been if I was their age, going through a pandemic, going through all these things. So I would tell them on top of there being like a world outside of Spring Valley, I would tell them, you know, just keep pressing forward, and just like constantly try to improve upon yourself, constantly try to better yourself every step of the way. I think there's a I heard a talk the other day about a guy named Gary Vee, and he said, "How do you balance being like satisfied and wanting more?"
Mm.
And he said, "It comes a point where you got to realize that what makes you happy, and like whatever makes you happy, you got to hold on to it, and you gotta hold on to that happiness, be grateful for what you have, but then always like look to what's ahead. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's a level of gratefulness being where they at. I think that's definitely a tool that I think is useful for young folks, but also realizing that there is much more ahead. Like I said, there is a world bigger than Spring Valley, and that you know we can go ahead and reach for those things. There's no reason why they're unattainable. We can go ahead and reach for those things and try our best to get there. And then once we do that, just like look back and pave it forward. You know what I mean? So like Spring Valley is like is in my heart, and like it's like a cemented there. You know what I mean? So I hope to other people feel the same way because I'm kind of going off a tangent, but I hope people feel the same way because I think the only way we make Spring Valley better is by bettering ourselves and bettering our you know paths in life. And then once we get to where we want to go, then we can like go back and like feed into the place where our roots are from. Um,
And
so yeah,
being okay with being uncomfortable in that journey.
For sure, yeah, and being okay with being uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like that's just that's the only way you can go anywhere in life. So I think that's definitely the thing I would tell them: be comfortable being uncomfortable, and then everything will fall into place after that. For sure.
Yeah, reach out, go there, be uncomfortable, and then come back home and recharge.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, we have arrived at question 10.
Ooh.
And question 10 is kind of more about you right now rather than looking back. So what are 3 self-care practices that you do now to help you to center or to regulate yourself, especially when you're feeling uncomfortable?
For sure. To center and regulate myself. So I think the first thing is practicing a routine. Like having a routine, I think to keep you to have a foundation, right? So since the beginning of 2021, every morning, Monday through Friday, I have like my little morning routine. So I do like 100 push-ups, 100 like abdominal workouts, and like 100 squats and stuff. And I do that in order to have like my first accomplishment of the day. Like I got out of bed and I do that, and I've been doing that Monday through Friday, every day since January 1st, 2021. And so that's the thing number one. Number two, and this also goes with my morning routine. I make sure I'm not like involving in the world like when I first get out of bed. Like I'm not on my phone. I'm not like checking all the stuff. I try to give a moment of silence, like just for me to just like meditate, pray, and just like vibe out. You know what I mean? Almost like setting my mindset throughout the day. I think that's very imperative. Like when you wake up and the first thing you're on your phone, you're automatically like thrown into the jungle. You know what I mean? I think you got to prepare yourself and get yourself together. So yeah, so first thing, routine. Second thing is have that moment of, to yourself. For me, it's like 15, 20 minutes. It can be whatever time is best for you. The third thing is have like people that you're able to just call and just chat with. I'm lucky that I have like between my sister, I have 3 mentors that I reach out to at different times. And then I'm able to just like, unpack and pretty much tell them the things that are on my mind, things that are either weighing me down or things I'm trying to think through. So having those people for me is very imperative, because I don't think this life is meant to be walked alone. I think we need other people in our journey in order to get to where we want to get to. So those are the 3 things for me that I rely upon that to help me be a better me. So yeah.
I love it. I love everything about that. I knew it was going to be one of those good conversations that we often have anyway.
Oh, for sure. This is like on a regular. Now we're just recording it and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, whenever Hernz and I do reconnect, and we'll go like kind of long periods of time, and then it'll be like, hey, or I'll get a text like Tiro,
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh yay, Hernz is back in my life. Okay.
Exactly, and it's an absolute blessing, being able to reconnect and like in these different ways. So like from high school to post grad and like as I'm getting older and stuff, it means a lot to me to be able to connect with you. It keeps me it recharges me, and you know what I mean, and like brings me back to the studio days. You know what I'm saying, like rehearsing for the plays and for the dances and stuff. So I'm thankful for you and for your constant advice and for the comfort that I get just from talking to you. So thank you.
Oh God, that's definitely my pleasure. Next time you're back in New York, we have to do our power bagels.
Oh, we have to. That's an absolute must. You know what I mean? I miss those bagels, and like nowhere else do they do power bagels like they do in
nowhere else. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Hernz Laguerre Jr., once again, thank you for bringing your best self to everything that you do. And join us next week for episode 7 of Changed for the Better, the Power of Arts in Education. Yay!